So let's now make sure that if we tap those drawer items, we actually navigate to a different screen. Now for that, we could go to these anonymous functions that are set as values on tap, and indeed use navigator of context to then push a different screen on top of the screen stack right from inside this drawer. And this wouldn't necessarily be wrong, but it would cause one problem here. In this app here, we will in the end need to manage the active filters that have been chosen on that to be added filters screen. We will have to manage those inside of the tab start file because it's inside of this tabs screen widget here where we in the end load the categories screen. And the categories screen then in turn will load the meals screen. If you remember, inside of category start, we push the meals screen, and the meals screen will need to know which meals should be displayed. And therefore, of course, in the future, we'll have to make sure that we pass this information about which filters have been selected to this meals screen, and therefore in the end also to this categories screen, and therefore we will need that information inside of this tabs screen, because that is our main data management widget in the end, because it's this tabs screen widget that loads all the other meal related screens that need that meals and filters information. And for that reason, I'll not do the navigation from inside my main drawer widget, but instead in this main drawer widget, I'll add a new property, a function, which will need some string identifier as a parameter, and you'll see what this parameter is all about in just a second. And I'll name it onSelectScreen or anything like this. And of course, then I'll make sure that this parameter of the same name is required and bound to this property. Now, the idea is that this function, which we store in this property, can be called from inside onTap here for these two list items. And here for this first list item, where we want to go to the meals screen, I'll pass an identifier of meals. And on this second list tile, where we want to go to the filters screen, I'll call onSelectScreen and pass filters as a value. That's the idea behind this string identifier. And the reason for adding such a string identifier here is to make sure that in tab start, we can define this function, which we expect as a value here in main drawer, and which we then bind to this onSelectScreen. And in tab start, we then get this identifier to decide which screen should actually be loaded. And then we can manage and pass the data that might be required by that screen accordingly. So therefore here in tab start, I'll add a new function, which I'll name setScreen. And here I'll expect to get this string identifier. And it's this setScreen function that will be passed as a value to main drawer under this onSelectScreen parameter, which we added. And now we have to remove const here. So with that, the main drawer can in the end communicate with the tabs screen, and it will be this setScreen function, or method to be precise, that will be executed if one of these list tiles will be pressed. And we will simply get a different identifier value inside of this setScreen function, depending on which drawer item was pressed. And here we can then check, for example, if identifier is equal to filters, to then load the filters screen, which we have yet to add, and else we know it must be meals, and in this case we can load the tabs screen. Now for this else case here, so if you want to go to the tabs screen in the end, it's of course important to keep in mind that we already are on this tabs screen here. So if we open the drawer from this tabs screen and we then selected meals in that drawer, we effectively just want to close the drawer because we already are on that meals screen or in that meals area of the app already. And therefore, if we just want to close the drawer, we can do this through the navigator object and close it just as we closed modals or dialogues before in this course. We can simply use pop like this. The context is available here because we're in a state class, in a class based on state here. So that's how we can close the drawer if we are on the meals screen, on the tabs screen in the end, and we want to go back to the meals area. And therefore, if you save this and force a reload, you will see that if I open this and I click meals, I simply close the drawer. So this works as it should. So now let's make sure that we can also go to the filters screen. And for that, we first of all have to add such a filters screen.